right, strap yourselves in for this one, folks, because today we're going deep into a world that most of us only see in movies, the kind of shadowy underbelly of international arms dealing.
Yeah, and those movies actually look pretty tame compared to this book we're looking at today. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking about a real life mystery man. This guy Karl Lee, a Chinese businessman who's been accused of being one of the most prolific and most dangerous arms dealers in the world.
Wow. I mean, so this book, is it one of those like kind of pulpy thriller kind of things? Or is it more...
It's funny you say that because it really does read like a thriller, but the crazy part is that it's all real.
Wow.
Like, they open the book with this scene of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, arriving in Baghdad.
Right.
And you instantly get this feeling that you're stepping into a world of incredibly high stakes.
Yeah.
With these shadowy figures operating just behind the scenes.
And like they say, truth is stranger than fiction.
Right. It really is, and this book is a perfect example of that. One of the things that really fascinated me was how they use Soleimani, someone who operated very much in the public eye, as a contrast to Karl Lee, who they call the Phantom. They talk about the incredible challenges they faced just trying to find basic information about this guy. It makes you wonder how someone can wield so much influence in the world while remaining virtually invisible.
It's crazy how they could even find enough about him to write a book.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even begin to research someone like that? I mean, we're talking about someone who's been linked to supplying weapons technology to Iran,
right? A
country facing international sanctions,
right?
And yet he's this ghost. I mean, they even talk about that bizarre website that was dedicated to him, Fangwei.com, which, by the way, just the name of that website is creepy.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. It really makes you question what's real and what's disinformation. Like, is this website some kind of bizarre PR stunt? Yeah. An attempt to discredit him? Or something even more sinister? It really highlights how the internet has just completely changed the game when it comes to espionage and information warfare.
Yeah, it's like a whole nother layer of the whole arms-dealing world that we don't even think about.
It is.
Okay, so we've got this shadowy, mysterious figure at the center of it all. And to understand him, they actually take us back to his childhood in China's Heilongjiang province.
That's right.
And this is where the book gets really interesting, I think. They start to paint this picture of a region that's just steeped in history and myth.
And they weave in this chilling account of the Cultural Revolution's impact on this region, too.
Yeah.
Referencing the work of this photographer, Li Zhensheng, who captured the just absolute terror of that era. You can't help but wonder if growing up in that kind of environment, surrounded by so much turmoil, if that in some way shaped Lee's path.
It definitely makes you think about the forces that shape individuals, especially the ones who operate in the shadows like that.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the arms dealing itself. I mean, how do you even begin to supply a country like Iran with the materials they need to build missiles when the entire world is watching?
Right. Well, that's where the book gets into the nitty-gritty of the illegal arms trade. The authors actually consulted with this group called Project Alpha.
Right.
It's a research unit in London that specializes in this very thing.
Oh, wow.
And what's really interesting is how they break down how just these seemingly normal, ordinary items, graphite, aluminum alloys, gyroscopes, can become essential components in these really deadly weapons systems.
Wait, so we're talking about stuff you could just walk into a hardware store and pick up?
It's really kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It is.
It really shows you just how accessible some of this technology can be if you know where to look. And the book does a great job of explaining how these networks actually operate, how they move the money, and how they exploit loopholes in international law. It's really eye-opening.
Yeah, I bet. So it's not even just about moving the weapons themselves. It's how do you move the money?
Right.
I mean, you can't exactly walk into a bank and be like, hey, I need to wire $1 million to Tehran and put in the memo missile parts.
Exactly. And that's where things get really fascinating in this book. They introduce us to this guy, Robert Morgenthau. He was the Manhattan District Attorney, way back when.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was known for being just relentless in his pursuit of white-collar crime.
Okay.
But he was particularly concerned about Iran and their nuclear ambitions. And so he was actually working with Mossad.
Whoa.
The Israeli intelligence agency, to investigate Iranian financial dealings.
Talk about a power team. So what did they find? I mean, what did they uncover?
Well, they discovered that Karl Lee was using this incredibly complex web of shell companies to basically funnel money and disguise his activities.
Wow.
It was like a giant financial puzzle that they had to piece together.
And so they actually found evidence connecting him to this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Through these investigations, they actually uncovered emails.
Wow.
That directly linked Lee to Iranian companies. It proved that he was deliberately and knowingly circumventing U.S. sanctions.
So we're not just talking about some arms dealer. We're talking about a master financial manipulator.
Right. But he was the real deal. And it really makes you wonder just how much of this kind of activity is happening all the time.
Yeah.
Slipping under the radar.
Right.
But here's where the geopolitical stuff really comes into play.
Okay.
Because you've got China, Iran, the U.S., and Israel all tangled up in this whole thing.
Right. Yeah. It's what? Four-dimensional chess game or something. So walk me through that. How does China fit into this whole picture?
Well, the book goes into this really complex relationship that China has with Iran.
Okay.
At one point, China was openly supplying them with weapons. But then they kind of shifted gears and adopted a more, I guess you could say, nuanced approach. Yeah. Essentially playing this double game to try and advance their own interests.
Okay.
They want to maintain a good relationship with Iran, but they also don't want to completely alienate the U.S. either.
Right. So it's they're trying to play both sides a little bit.
Exactly.
Right.
They want to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
The book calls this the Iran card.
Iran card, okay.
It's this idea that China uses its relationship with Iran as leverage when they're dealing with the U.S.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have Israel, who obviously sees Iran's missile program as this direct existential threat.
Right.
And they've taken some pretty extreme measures to try and stop it, launching strikes, even assassinating some of their key scientists.
Yeah, that was really scary when that was happening. I remember reading about that. So what was Israel's take on Karl Lee? Surely they must have had him on their radar, right?
You would think so, but that's where things get really strange. There's this almost eerie silence about Lee within Israeli circles, even though it's pretty clear they were well aware of his activities.
Interesting.
So it makes you wonder if there were these kind of behind-the-scenes pressures, similar to what they faced in the Bank of China affair,
right,
where China pressured them to drop a lawsuit against the bank for funding terrorism.
So maybe there was some backroom dealing happening. We see this in the movies all the time, right? We'll make this go away if you make that go away, kind of thing. But this was all happening a while ago, right? What about now? How does this all connect to what's going on today?
I mean, things have been pretty tense between the U.S. and China lately, and with what Russia's been doing. I mean, it's kind of a whole different ballgame now. Right. And that's what makes this book so relevant, because they bring the story up to the present day, and it's pretty chilling, actually.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with Iran potentially supplying missiles to Russia now, the threat isn't just contained to the Middle East anymore. It's basically on Europe's doorstep.
Oh, wow.
And there was this quote from FBI Director Christopher Wray that really stuck with me.
Okay.
He basically said that even if they caught Karl Lee, the network he built, the infrastructure he created, would likely continue to operate.
That's terrifying. So it's almost like you cut off the head of the Hydra and two more grow back.
It really does seem that way. And it kind of drives home this point that we're not dealing with a few rogue actors here. We're talking about a whole system.
Yeah.
A complex web of individuals and organizations that profit from conflict. But here's the real kicker.
Okay.
The book reveals that Lee may have actually been imprisoned in China back in 2015.
Wait, what? Imprisoned? But he's still on the FBI's most wanted list.
I know, right? It's there's this missing piece of the puzzle. Why keep the manhunt going if they know he's behind bars?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. Makes you wonder if there's something else going on, something we're not seeing.
There's a whole other level to this that we just don't know about. It's funny. They talk about how China was so effective at dismantling our spy networks over there.
Yeah.
So were we basically blind to what was happening?
That was definitely one of the key takeaways I got from the book. They describe just how incredibly challenging it was for the U.S. to get good intel inside China. It's like they were operating in the dark.
It really makes you appreciate just how much more there is to this whole story than we probably even realize.
Absolutely. It adds this whole other layer of complexity to the whole thing.
It's fascinating and unsettling at the same time.
I agree.
It's almost like the more we learn about this, the less we actually know.
I know what you mean. It really is like peeling back the layers of an onion. And every layer you peel back, you find another mystery underneath.
Right. And it makes you wonder, if someone like Karl Lee could operate under the radar for so long, what else is out there?
Right? What else don't we know about?
Yeah, and I think what's even more disturbing is the way he was able to use the internet and technology to his advantage.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the internet has become a tool for so many things, but it's also become a weapon.
Right.
A way to deceive, manipulate, and as we've seen with Karl Lee, a way to fuel conflict.
It's almost like the internet itself is becoming the most dangerous weapon out there. And the scary thing is it's constantly evolving.
Exactly. I mean, who knows what new methods people like Karl Lee are using now that we haven't even discovered yet.
It's kind of overwhelming to think about, you know.
I know what you mean. It really makes you question everything.
It does. It does. But this book, it doesn't just like throw up its hands and say, well, that's it, we're doomed. Right? I mean, did they offer any solutions, any insights into how we can maybe address these challenges?
Well, it's not a how-to manual for like stopping arms dealers or anything like that, but it does really emphasize how important international cooperation is.
Okay.
And intelligence sharing, because it highlights just how difficult it is to counter these threats when countries aren't working together.
Right. Because everybody's got their own agenda.
Exactly. Everybody's got their own thing going on, and they're not really willing to share information or work together, and that makes it 1,000 times harder to track these guys down and stop them.
So we really need to be smarter about how we approach this whole issue, like more collaborative.
Absolutely. We need to think globally and understand that these threats don't respect borders. It also really emphasizes the need to understand, like really understand the motivations of the different players involved.
Right, because it's not always as simple as just good guys versus bad guys.
Right, exactly. Everyone's got their own motivations, their own interests. It's way more nuanced than that.
It sounds like this book is really a call for greater awareness then.
It is. It's about questioning the narratives we're fed and seeking out multiple perspectives. It's a reminder that the world is a lot more complex than we often think it is, and that we can't just sit back and assume that someone else is taking care of these problems for us.
We got to be informed.
Exactly. We got to be informed. We have to ask questions. We have to be skeptical. And we have to be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
That's a powerful message for sure.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who haven't checked out this book yet, what's the one thing you hope they take away from our little deep dive here?
Honestly, I just hope it sparks their curiosity. This book is like an incredible journey into this world that most of us will never see firsthand. It's a real-life spy thriller with more twists and turns than you can count. And it really makes you think about the world in a whole new way.
It's the kind of book that makes you look over your shoulder.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. But hey, that's not always a bad thing.
True, true. A little healthy paranoia can keep you on your toes. So if you're looking for a book that will keep you up all night, this is it.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to do some deep diving of your own.
That's what we like to hear. Until next time, folks, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Stay curious.